Okay, so for the past few lessons, our topic was stress. Now we're going to talk about the result of stress or the effect of stress, which is strain. So strain is just basically deformation. So let's talk about that. Let's have an intro. All right, so strain is just a geometric quantity that measures the deformation of a body. There's two types, your normal strain and shear strain. So we're going to start with normal strain first. It's dimensional changes, while shear strain is distortion or change in angles. So let's focus on normal strain first. There. So normal strain is also known as axial strain. Why? From the name itself, normal, the force that is causing your elongation or deformation is along the axis of your object. So for example, you have this rod here, your BC. This force P causes this rod to elongate by this much. Okay? And this force is along the axis of your rod, which is why it's called normal strain, because it's due to a normal force. So because of that, the definition of normal strain is just elongation per unit length. So your elongation is along the direction of your force. So when you have uniform deformation, what you're solving for will be average axial strain. So axial strain is denoted by this symbol E, epsilon, and it's just equal to deformation per length. So here, this is delta. So delta is your axial elongation or deformation, while L is the original length of your member. So again, strain is just deformation over original length. Now, when you have non-uniform deformation, you're getting or solving for strain at a point because your object is not deforming uniformly. So instead of using this equation, you have this integral equation here. So strain now is equal to deformation times the integral of strain dx from 0 to L, or deformation times integral of strain dx from 0 to L. But for the purpose of our discussion, we'll usually have just here, your average axial strain. Okay? So we have sign convention. If your forces are in tension, you're going to have positive strain. If your forces are in compression, you're going to have negative strain, which makes sense because for tension, for positive strain, your original length will increase, or rather your final length will increase from your original. So there's an addition of length here. For compression, there's negative strain because there's a reduction in length, as you can see by the dashed lines. Okay, so that's your normal or axial strain. Now let's talk about your stress strain diagram. So to get a stress strain diagram, you do what we call a tension test. So a tension test is for a tension test, a sample is subjected to a controlled tension until failure. So continuous readings are taken of the applied load and elongation of the gauge length. The data are then converted to stress and strain. So from load and elongation, you're going to compute for stress and strain. Okay. And the equations were already given earlier and in your past topics. So plotting your actual stress versus actual strain results in your stress strain diagram. So this is an example of your rod. Okay, you're going to subject this to tension. And this is your gauge length where you'll be basing your length from. Okay, so as you imagine, elongate this, plot your, record your load, then the amount this gauge length elongates, okay, and then again compute for stress and strain. When you plot stress and strain, you're gonna have something like this. Okay, so as you can see on the x-axis, you have your strain. On the y-axis, you have your stress. When you plot it, you're going to have this sort of line right here. This is your graph. So let's talk about that. Let's describe it. So let's start from O or 0. Okay. As you can see, at this point, you have a straight line. So this is the first stage of your phase diagram, or your stress strain diagram rather. So this first stage is the linear elastic region. From the name itself, this is where your material still behaves or still has elastic properties. So here, since it's a straight line, the stress, and here, the stress is proportional to your strain. Therefore, this obeys your general Hooke's law we will talk about later on in the discussion. And when you solve for the slope of this linear line, you get what we call your Young's modulus. Again, we'll talk more about that later. So again, in this region, your material undergoes elastic deformation. Okay? So usually when we're taking the deformation of objects, we'd like to create our equations under the assumption that it behaves elastically, because equations are easier to derive in that situation. Okay, so at this stage, you get elastic deformation. Next, at the end, you see your proportional limit, elastic limit, and yield point. So here, at these points right here, plastic deformation starts. So elastic deformation ends, plastic deformation starts. And now, the stress component at these points is called your yield strength. So earlier, it's Young's modulus. Now moving on, or moving forward, you're gonna get your yield strength. And after that, after these stages right here, you're starting to enter your second stage, which is the strain hardening region. See, where your line starts to curve. So this region starts as stress goes beyond your yield point. So this is your yield point Y. Again, it starts here. Then it's going to reach a maximum. So your second stage starts at yield point and ends at this maximum point, which is also called your ultimate strength point. Okay. After reaching the ultimate strength or ultimate stress, also known as ultimate stress of your material, it starts entering a third stage. Okay. At the third stage, necking occurs. So this is called your necking region. Okay. So it's called necking region because at this point, there is significant deformation in your rod, hence necking. It starts to decrease in area significantly faster. All right? And then it keeps necking until eventually it fractures or it ruptures. That's why it's called your rupture strength at that point. Okay? Now, note, so even though, as you can see, your slope starts going down, right? Your stress starts decreasing. Now, even though your stress is decreasing, okay, your strain or deformation is still happening. Okay. Now, this is because at this point, you ignore the actual area of your rod. Okay? Remember, at this point, the area of your rod starts to decrease significantly. If you're ignoring that phenomenon, you're gonna have this kind of plot. Okay. Now, if you do take into consideration the actual area of your rod, wherein it starts decreasing significantly, this is what you get. Okay, there's still an increase in stress and strain. Okay, so that's the reason why you have 2 points right here. One is for using the original area, and this is for using the actual area or the actual decreased area. Okay, so that's the description of your stress strain diagram. Now let's talk about these points. You have first your rupture strength and your actual rupture strength. Again, this is because of the computation or using the value of area. So rupture strength is based on the original area and original gauge strength, or sorry, gauge length. Again, ignoring the shrinking of your area. This is that point. Actual rupture strength based on the actual decreased area. Okay, here considering your shrinking. Next, rupture stress and ultimate stress. Rupture stress is stress at which failure occurs. Then ultimate stress is the highest stress in the stress strain curve. As you can see, it's the highest point. So ultimate strength equivalent to ultimate stress. So ultimate stress, the highest stress your material can handle. Therefore, it's also its strength. Now, ultimate strength is the maximum stress that a material can withstand before it breaks or weakens. So its difference with rupture stress is, even though at this point it's the maximum stress it can handle, it's not failing completely yet, okay? Beyond that point, it's starting to fail. Then finally, at rupture stress is when it actually fails. A rupture occurs or fracture occurs. Okay? That is where a material has officially failed. All right, so that's the difference between ultimate and rupture. All right, let's move on to a couple of equations here. So again, we're going to talk about now your proportional limit and Hooke's law. We'll move on to Hooke's law a bit more at the end of this discussion or at the end of this topic. But for now, know that Hooke's law states that for relatively small deformations of an object, the size of the deformation is directly proportional to the load, which is why you have a straight line when you plot your stress and strain on a graph. Okay? So you have this equation, sigma, and from your previous topic, sigma is stress. So stress is just equal to E times epsilon, where epsilon is strain, E is Young's modulus, or modulus of elasticity. It can be in PA or PSI, depending on what unit you're on, English or metric. So usually the material that we're using for our discussion is steel. So remember the Young's modulus of steel because sometimes it's not given. Okay, so remember it's 200 GPa or 29 times 10 raised to 6 PSI. And GPa is just 1000 MPa. So that's a convenient conversion to know. Again, 1 GPa is equal to 1000 MPa. So due to this definition, Hooke's law is now the manifestation of the straight line from origin O to a point called your proportional limit. Therefore, its validity ends at the proportional limit. So again, this straight line, the manifestation of your Hooke's law, and the statement of Hooke's law ends here at proportional limit. So beyond that, Hooke's law is no longer followed. Okay? Next, let's talk about elastic and yield point. Elastic limit, it's the limit beyond which the material will no longer go back to its original shape when the load is removed, or it is the maximum stress that may be developed such that there is no permanent or residual deformation when the load is entirely removed. So elastic limit means beyond that, okay, your object will not behave as an elastic anymore or behave elastically. When we say elastic, it means after deformation, it goes back to its original shape. After that, after elastic limit, it doesn't go back to its original state anymore. You're gonna enter your plastic deformation. And then yield point is different from that. Yield point is the point at which the material will have an appreciable elongation or yielding without any increase in load. For structural steel, load may decrease while yielding occurs. So let's see at that point for our diagram. So this is your yield point. Look here. Okay? There's no significant increase in stress, right? There's no vertical change or vertical displacement at these points, but there's still horizontal displacement, meaning strain is happening even though stress is minimal, okay, at this point, as you can see. So that's your yield point. Next, let's talk about working stress and factor of safety. So working stress, also known as allowable stress, denoted by sigma sub W, is the maximum safe actual stress used in design. So in most designs, the working stress should be limited to values not exceeding the proportional limit, because as we mentioned earlier, we want our material to remain in the elastic range. However, since proportional limit is hard to determine accurately, it is customary to base the working stress on your yield stress or your ultimate stress. That's why we have two equations here. Okay, sigma W is just your yield stress over N, or ultimate stress over N, where N is your factor of safety. Okay, again, here, previously Fs is your factor of safety. Here, N is also known as your factor of safety. So usually for structural steel, yield point is selected as basis because it is the stress at which a large permanent set or deformation may occur. While in other materials, working stress is based on ultimate strength. So for structural steel, our working stress is less than what is usually considered for other materials. Okay, because again, at yield point for steel, there's already large permanent deformation. Okay, so we don't want to exceed that for steel. All right, now let's talk about actually loaded bars. We'll get more into equations. So for actually loaded bars, we have a condition to use the following equations. Load must be actual, the bar must have uniform cross-sectional area, and the stress must not exceed the proportionality limit or proportional limit. So if all of these conditions are met, you can use this equation where sigma equals, or rather where delta or deformation equals sigma L over E, stress times original length over modulus of elasticity, or is also equal to PL over AE. Now, how do we get those equations? It's a simple derivation. So let me just change this. Okay. So not bad. There. So did we get that PL over AE, which is an equation that you'll use a lot moving forward in your CE majors? Oh, okay. Wait lang. Oh, pag nasa, by the way, sidebar, sa Panopto, hindi na-enlarge yung videos nyo? Did you notice that?
Kailangan i-zoom in, ma'am.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll try something else. Because Mapo required us to upload in Panopto. But since that's the issue, apparently you can't zoom in or you can't enlarge the videos. I'll try uploading on YouTube, then sending to you the link. All right, I'll try that. Okay, so back to our lecture. By the way, if you have any issues, just send me a message. So again, where were we? Here, how did I get this equation? All right, so remember, we have an equation for okay. Again, remember we had this equation at the beginning of our lecture. Strain is just elongation per original length. Therefore, I can say we're looking for equation for elongation. Elongation now is just strain times original length L. Now, strain, using your Hooke's law, since we're inside your elastic region, I can use Hooke's law, which means I can use this, where your stress is just equal to modulus of elasticity times strain. Therefore, I can get another equation for strain. Strain is just stress over modulus of elasticity. Then subbing that here, right? Deformation is now equal to sigma L over E. So that's one of the equations. Next, remember, stress is just force over area. So stress is force over area. So times L over E. So stress equals PL over E. There, it's that simple. Okay. So again, you can only use this if you have the following conditions met. Now, in case you didn't meet those conditions, so if the cross-sectional area is not uniform, The actual deformation can be determined by considering a differential length and applying integration. So in short, you have this equation, deformation equals integral of P over AE dx from 0 to L, where area is just the thickness times distance y, and T and distance y, and y and t, if variable, must be expressed in terms of x because our differential here is in terms of x. Okay. If we have time, I'm going to show you an example of how to derive or integrate this kind of problem or solve problems with non-uniform cross-sectional area. But for now, we'll focus on uniform cross-sectional areas. Right. So we have this situation here for a rod of unit mass. Forgot what you called it. Rho. Yeah. For a rod of unit mass rho, suspended vertically from one end, the total elongation due to its own weight is this equation right here. So deformation equals rho GL squared over 2E equals MGL over 2AE. So yeah, let's figure out what's that rho. And how did I get this equation? Okay, so again, another derivation. So let's say you have a rod. Let's do that here. Okay, you have this rod. So this is actually deformation or elongation due to the own weight of your member. Okay, it's already stated there, elongation due to its own weight. It's this equation. So let's solve for that. So you have that rod. Let's say there's an applied, not applied. Okay. This rod has its own weight. There's no external force. Rather, this rod has a weight. Let's call that W. Okay. Again, this is not an external force. It's its own weight. And then this rod has its unit mass. Okay. So unit mass is actually, what is that? Anyway, it's not mentioned, but unit mass is actually just density. And the equation for density is mass over volume. Okay. Now let's multiply both sides by gravity. You get rho g equals mg over volume. Mg is just weight. So rho g equals weight over volume. So now you have unit weight, which is weight over volume. Okay. Next, I can now say the equation for weight here is just rho g v. Okay, now that I have that, again, what I'm looking for is deformation. So let's try to solve for that. Deformation. So since I don't know the equation for deformation yet, all the equations for deformation, you can use this. Even though it's uniform, this equation is still applicable. Okay? So integral of P over AE dx from 0 to L. Integral of P over AE dx from 0 to L. Next, what's P? Again, P. The force creating this to elongate is just the weight. So that's just weight over AE dx from 0 to L. And weight is rho GV. So rho GV over AE, again from 0 to L. Now remember, I need terms I need my variables in terms of x in order to use this equation. So let's try that. How can I apply x here? Well, this bar will elongate. Okay. So let's take a section of that. Let's say here, okay? Let's say you take that section, that's your elemental dx or element dx, okay? So for this element, the region that is causing this to move or to deform is everything below it, right? This part of your bar does not affect how this elongates. Therefore, the only thing that affects this part is everything below it. So let's say the height of that is your x. Oops. Okay, so there. So why is that x? Because this dx just denotes the differential elongation of your object. Okay, and your elongation is along this direction. In actual, this is in y. This is y direction. Okay, but let's just use x. Okay, it's just a difference of variables. Again, dx denotes the differential deformation of your object. That's why you need to measure along that direction. So therefore, this is your x. Okay, so that's the reason. So now, since this is what causes your load, that is where your weight is considered. Therefore, this raw GV, raw density is the same no matter how much of the material you're using, so it's the same. Force of gravity is the same. Now volume is what's different. So volume now is the volume of this portion, which is just the cross-sectional area of this rod times its height. Okay, so AX 1 over AE dx from 0 to L. And as you can see, A cancels out. You're left with integral of rho gx over E dx. Now remember, in integration, if you have a constant, you can just factor it out. So density, again, it's constant because it doesn't change no matter how much of the material you use. Obviously, gravity is constant, and Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity is also constant. So all of those I can factor out. So rho g over E. So I'm left with integral of 0 to L of x dx. Does anyone remember what's the integral of x dx? Anyone? No one? Ang nakakaalala? Nalimutan nyo na integral calculus nyo? Hey, correct, Lawrence. It's x squared over 2. So rho g x squared over 2 from 0 to L. So solving for that, you get rho g L squared over 2E. So that's your equation, right? Okay. So you can see rho g L squared over 2E. Now, how did we get MGL over 2AE? Just rewrite density as your, as you can see, density is just mass rho g using this Apologies, just mg over v. So this becomes mg L squared over 2 VE. Okay, so that's the reason why. And then move this. And then B is just AX, or for this case now it's AL. And G L squared over 2. V is volume. So that's just area times. So here volume is now total volume. Since we're using Ng rho G, which is this is considering the whole rod or whole material. So now this is L. We're considering the full volume. So V is now equal to AL. Sorry, this is L. ALE, and then L cancels out. Finally, you're left with MGL over 2AE. There. All right? MGL over 2AE. You understand? Please answer yes or no. Do you understand the derivation of your equations? Great, great. Let's move on to the next one. So aside from that, we have this property called stiffness, denoted by K. It's just the ratio of steady force acting on an elastic body to the resulting displacement. So ratio of force to displacement, therefore that's just P over delta. So in case, just P over delta. Right. So let's have a few notes on the computation of deformation. P must be found from equilibrium analysis. What's that? What's equilibrium analysis? That's your summation of moment, summation of forces equals 0. So we're gonna draw free body diagrams here. Then sign convention, positive P if you have tensile force, so positive delta or positive elongation. Negative P if you have compressive force, and then you have negative if you have shortening. Make sure units are consistent. It is common practice to let the units of E determine the units to be used. For example, for SI system, E is in GPA, right? So that's times 10 raised to 9 times 1000 MPa. So in short, that's just 200 times 10 raised to 9 PA. So 200 GPa is 200 times 10 raised to 9 PA. So everything must be in Newton and meters. Or if you want to use Newton millimeters, MPa, and everything must be Newtons and millimeters, depending on what's being asked. Then English system, your PSI, 29 times 10 raised to 6. So everything must be in pounds and inches, right? Then lastly, if actual stress is in the elastic range, delta of a bar is very small compared to its length. So elongation is small compared to its original length. All right, now that's done. Concepts are done. Let's have a few examples. All right, let's start with number 1. A steel rod having a cross-sectional area of 300 meters squared and a length of 150 meters is suspended vertically from one end. It supports a tensile load of 20 kilonewtons at the lower end. If the unit mass of steel is 7850 kilogram per meter cubed and E is 200 times 10 raised to 3 meganewton per meter squared, or MPa, find the total elongation of the rod. So we're looking for elongation, total elongation. Let's have that. Right, starting number 1. So let's write out our given first. So that reading again, cross-sectional area 300 millimeters squared, length of 150. So write that out, cross-sectional area A. Millimeters squared, original length 150. What else? And it supports a tensile load of 20 at one end. Then you have this unit mass. Again, from earlier, unit mass just means density. So density 7850. So like that. So you have force at the end. Let's call that P. Tensile force 20 kilonewton, right? Then your density was 7850 kilogram per meter cube. And then lastly, your E, which you should already know, is just 200 times 10 raised to 3 Newton per meganewton per meter squared. So we're looking for elongation. So since this is a rod, right, usually our elongation now will be in millimeters. So this is also now equal to, since this is MPa, that's also Newton per millimeter squared. So everything needs to be in millimeters. All right. So again, we're looking for deformation. Let's see. Let's draw what's happening first. You have your rod freely hanging at the end. Then you have a tensile load here of 20 kilonewton. So let's see elongation due to force or due to load. So elongation due to load is just PL over AE. Okay. Force is 20 kilonewtons, obviously. Everything in newtons, so that's 20,000 newtons. Length, original length is 150. Unit of that was meters. So what you can do now is to convert that into millimeters, everything in millimeters now, so that your final answer is in millimeters. Or if you want, you can have everything in uniform unit. In this case, everything in meters, then your final answer will be in millimeters. So let's try the first one, the second one, the latter. Everything in meters first, then convert everything to millimeters. All right? Okay. So again, we're using PL over AE. Do I have A? Cross-sectional area, yes. Let's use that. Let's use the former first. Convert everything to millimeters. So 150 meters, convert that to millimeters. That's 1 times 1,000. Okay, let's write that out. Meters. Okay, 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. And over AE. A is 300 millimeters already, so no problem there. Then E. Yes, E, already in millimeters. So again, no problem. 200 times 10 raised to 3. Please compute, what's the answer? 50, correct, 50. Now, are we done? Is this the answer? What do you think? Is this the answer, yes or no? Just put there. Find the total elongation of the rod. Is it 50? Is that the final answer? Ibabox ko na ba? What do you think? Oh, everybody answer yes or no. How about the others? No. Bakit? Oh, bakit no? Can anyone tell me bakit no? Why is this not the total elongation yet? I'll give the point to who can explain. Tell me what. Add 50 pa? Bakit? Saan ko add yung 50? No. Okay. No, that's not the reason why. We're looking for total elongation, so it's already just delta. We're looking for just delta, not the final length. If you're looking for final length, then yes, that's correct. It's 150 plus 50, right? But as you can see, it's elongation. So anyone else who wants to figure out why is it not 50? Kulang pa siya. Medyo may clue dyan. Okay, you're close, John, Victor. It has something to do with weight. Remember, if you have a free hanging rod, it's gonna elongate due to its own weight. So I'll give you the point. Very good, John. Yes. Okay. So yes, this is not the total elongation yet. You have to figure out elongation due to weight of your rod. Okay? Let's draw that again. And this time, considering the weight as well. Okay, so we have weight here. Yeah. So due to, so remember, whenever you have a free hanging rod, it's gonna elongate due to its own weight. Okay, so figured out that equation earlier. Ito siya. Yan. This is the equation for elongation due to weight. So rho GL squared over 2E or MGL over 2AE, depending on what's given. So let's use rho GL squared over 2E since rho is given for density. So rho GL squared over 2E. Rho is 7850. So this is in meters. I don't want to convert back to millimeters yet, so let's just do everything in meters, then millimeters at the end. 7850 kilogram per meter. Then gravity is 9.81 meter. So it's still consistent, meter per second squared. Length is 150, again meters. So no need to convert. Again, we're using everything in meters first, and over 2, then what's E? This is millimeter, so convert that to meters. So that's just 200 times 10 raised to 3. That is Newton per millimeter squared. But again, everything is in meters for these values, so convert to meters. So 1 meter, 1,000 millimeters. Then squared. What's the answer? Anyone? He solved. Correct, 4.33. Okay, 4.33 times 10 raised to -3 meters. Convert that to millimeters, so just divide it by 1,000. Final answer, nm. So therefore, total elongation, so let's call that sigma t, delta t, is just 50 plus 4.33. So finally, it's 54.33 millimeters. Okay? Or another conversion you can remember is 200 GPA is 200 times 10 raised to 9 PA. 1 GPA is 10 raised to 9 PA. And 1 GPA is 10 raised to 3 MPa. All right. Any questions so far? Do you understand? Do you understand? Please answer yes or no. Again, please answer. Do you understand? Yes or no? Okay, good. Let's move on to the next. Number 2. Sorry. Okay. Number 2. A steel wire 30 feet long hanging vertically supports a load of 500 pounds. Neglecting the weight of the wire, determine the required diameter if the stress is not to exceed 20 KSI and the total elongation is not to exceed 0.20 inches. Then assume E is equal to 29 times 10 raised to 6 PSI. So we have two restrictions here. First, it's already stated there, stress not to exceed 20 KSI, and total elongation not to exceed 0.20. So we're going to solve for both restrictions as what we did in our previous lectures. Now, it's already specifically stated here, neglect weight of the wire. So I don't have to go through this anymore. Okay, I don't have to do, this due to weight anymore. Okay, so let's start. Let's write our given. Steel wire 30 feet long, supports a load of 500 pounds. Then 20 KSI, elongation 0.20, E is 29 times 10 raised to 6. So write all of those out. So original length, 30 feet. We have supports a load at the end. So that's your P, 500 pounds. Then you have your allowable stress. It should not exceed a stress of 20 KSI. So let's call that sigma W, your working stress. Should not exceed this working stress. So 20 KSI. And then we have your maximum elongation allowable. Let's call that delta max. 0.20 inches. Okay, then E is equal to 29 times 10 raised to 6 psi. So again, we have two restrictions, so you have to solve for two or solve twice. So let's start with this restriction first. Sigma is just limited to 20. So sigma, remember, is equal to P over A. Right, in your previous subject, no, lectures. So sigma, that's 20 KSI. Remember everything in PSI, since that is the unit of your E. Usually we're following the unit of E. So instead of KSI, it's PSI. So KSI to PSI is just times 1,000. So 20 times 1,000 equals P, 500 pounds. Pounds, PSI is pounds per square inch. So same unit, no need to convert. So 500 over cross-sectional area. This is a wire. So wires have a circular cross-sectional area. So that's just pi over 40 squared. Again, we're looking for allowable diameter. Determine the required diameter, not allowable. Is required diameter. It's here, pi over 4 d squared. Okay, solve for D. What's the answer? Correct, John and Lau, 0.18. Now compare this to the required diameter using elongation. So elongation, due to load, so therefore our equation is PL over AE. Again, if it's due to weight, it's MGL squared over 2AE. Or raw, L squared over AE. Okay, one of those. So PL AE. This is limited to 0.20 inches. PSI is in inches, so no need to convert. Again, P is 500 pounds. Length is 30 feet. Convert feet to inches. Okay. So 1 foot is 12 inches. Over 8. Again, it's a circle, so pi over 4d squared. Then E is 29 times 10 raised to 6. So what's your D considering elongation? Correct, Miguel, John, and Miguel, 0.20 inches. So therefore, what D am I going to use? 0.18 or 0.20? Correct, John and Trisha. Okay, Gutierrez. Trisha. It's 0.2. Di pa rin kayo nasasanay kung alin pipiliin. Bakit? If I use 0.18, yeah. If I use 0.18, the elongation, yeah. If I use 0.18, the elongation will exceed 0.20. Okay, why? So let's say for this to be 0.20, D must be 0.20. If I use 0.18 here, the denominator is less. Right. Therefore, the whole value of this would be greater or would increase. Therefore, it would exceed 0.20. And that is already the maximum deformation that is allowed. That's why you're going to use 0.20. Okay? That's why. So again, check. If I use this value, will the other one fail? Or will it not conform to the allowable? Or would it exceed the allowable? If we use 0.18 here, yes, elongation will exceed 0.20. So bawal to. Therefore, ito. So dapat. Okay? Okay, guys, you understand? Yes or no? Okay, great. Let's move on to number 3. It's a bit complicated. A steel tire, 10 millimeters thick, 80 millimeters wide, and 1,500 millimeters inside diameter, is heated and shrunk into a steel wheel 1,500.5 millimeters in diameter. The coefficient of static friction is 0.30. What torque is required to twist the tire relative to the wheel? Neglect the deformation of the wheel. Then use E equals 200 GPa. So before we analyze that, let's try to write out our given first. Okay, since it's kind of hard, well, not hard, but tedious to understand that. So number 3, let's write out our given. Thickness of your tire was 10 millimeters, so T. The width of your tire is 80 millimeters. Inner diameter, let's call that D sub I for inner, 1,500 millimeters. Okay, so that's all for tire. Then for the wheel, let's call that dW for wheel, 1,500.5 millimeters. Then we had a coefficient of static friction, 0.30. Okay, so let's draw what happens there for you to better understand. Okay. Okay. Wheel. You have your wheel. That's your tire. This is your wheel. Tire wheel. So what happens there is, this is your wheel. This is your tire, the brown one. It was heated up, so it's gonna expand. Then you place it in your wheel, and it's gonna hug that. Okay, so what we're looking for now is torque required to twist the tire relative to the wheel. So we're looking for torque. Okay. And how much torque do you need to apply so that this tire will rotate about the wheel? So torque required, meaning it has to overcome a certain resisting force. And where will that resisting force come from? Anyone? Do you have a guess? Even just looking at our given, you can guess. Where will this resisting force for our torque come from? Okay. What's gonna oppose the turning of this tire? Specifically, what property of the metal? Friction, correct, Rod. Very good. Correct, it's the friction. Friction always opposes the motion of an object. So it's the friction. Therefore, remember our equation for torque? is R times F. Usually F is the force providing the torque. In this case, it's the force needed to overcome, or we need to overcome for our tire to rotate. So F is just your frictional force. So we're looking for frictional force. And remember, based on your physics class, frictional force is just mu n. Mu is given. Now I just need to find n. And n is normal force. It's the force perpendicular to the surface of two objects in contact. And the objects in contact are your wheel and your tire. So therefore, your friction will be somewhere here. Okay? If your tire is rotating that way, and friction will be this way. That's your frictional force. Okay? Let's choose a different color. Yes, again. Ulit. Okay. So again, friction. Okay. So your torque will rotate it about this way. Friction opposes that. So it's tangential. It's gonna be that way. Okay. It's tangent to your wheel. So that's your friction force. And what's R? R is the distance from your axis to point of force. So axis of your wheel is this. So that's your R. N. So now I need to know what's that N. N is the force, contact force between your wheel and your tire. So now how do I get that? How do I get that contact force? Well, let's try to get a cross section of this. Okay. There. So imagine this being your wheel. That contact force now is actually this. Okay. That's your F. And that contact force will come from here. Let's call it F. So this is your tire. Okay. Yeah. So this tire experiences a pressure because it's being squeezed around your wheel. So it has a force F. Therefore, that force F will be or is used to get your N, your normal force. Now, how do I get F? Remember in our here notes, F force, P force must be found from equilibrium analysis. So we're gonna use summation of forces, therefore. So if you have F here, remember in your cylindrical vessels, there's gonna be a reaction here, your tension. And where will that reaction come from? This tension occurs because of this force, but also this tension occurs because after elongating, then returning to its original shape, it experiences a resisting force around its own tire. So therefore, this T comes from elongation. So now let's actually try to solve everything. So again, T, we're gonna solve for T, then F, then N, then friction, and finally torque. Okay. So let's write out now our equations. All right. So as I've said earlier, this T will come from elongation. Okay. So that would be, since it's due to force, not weight, it's PL over AE. Okay. And again, that P is your T. So equals P, then L over AE. So previously, our elongations came from a rod, right? So therefore, if you have this rod, it's going to elongate this way. The formation is just a linear length L. Okay. But what if you have a circle? What dimension is changing? Anyone? It's not length anymore. What's changing? What's deforming for a circle? Correct, radius. Correct, rod. So radius, or more appropriate, since this is what's given, diameter. Or in actual, it's circumference of your circle is changing. But since diameter is the same in all directions, you can just use diameter as well. So this is change in D. Oops. And change in diameter equals T, original diameter length, over, and what's this area? This is your area. Okay. That is what's deforming. Cross-sectional area of your circumference. Again, what's actually changing is circumference, okay? Actually, let's write that so that you can see clearly. Circumference, an equation for circumference is just pi d. Okay. So your circumference is this. Cross-sectional area would be this, which is just this. And the dimensions of that would be, this is the thickness of your tire. This is the width of your tire. And this is the thickness of your tire. So cross-sectional area is just thickness times width. So PW. E. Okay. There. Write out your values. Pi cancels out. That's why you can just use D. So just pi. Change in D now is final diameter minus original diameter. So final diameter would be the diameter of your wheel. Why? Again, your tire will expand, then will fit into this wheel. And this wheel has a diameter of 1,500.5. Okay? 1,500.5. So now that's also the final inner diameter of your tire. So 1,500.5 minus 1,500 original diameter of your tire equals T. That's what we're looking for. Again, D, 1,500, the original one, over thickness, then everything in millimeters, so no problem there. 80 times GPA is not given, I believe. Oh no, it's given 200 GPA. Okay. And again, that's just 200 times 10 raised to 3 Newton per millimeter squared. So 200 times 10 raised to 3. Okay, then using this, you can solve for T. I'll give it, it's 53,333.33. Now that you have T, I can solve for F using equilibrium equation. Summation of forces F equals 0. So F minus 2T equals 0, F equals 2T. F, again, F here is due to pressure. So F is just pressure, pressure times area. An area is this right here. This is your area. Okay. That's the area. Equals to T, and this is your T. So pressure, okay, times area. As you can see, area is with this 80. Okay. Times height. What is that height? It's the original length. So this is 1,500. And then, okay. So times 1,500. Equals to T. Again, T is this. So now I can solve for pressure. So pressure is just 0.89. What's our unit? Our units are all in Newton per millimeter. Okay, therefore, it's MPa. Now that I have P, I can solve for N. How? N now is just equal to pressure times the area of your wheel. So let's call that AW. Okay? So 0.89. So again, this is normal force due to pressure. This is the pressure from your tire exerted on the wheel. So that now this is area of your wheel. Okay, 0.89. Then what's the area of your wheel? Area of contact. So area of contact on the wheel would be circumference, right? Times its thickness or times its width, right? Yeah, if this is your wheel, so times its width. So circumference, pi d. Usog natin dun. Kasha. So pi times d, again, this is for the wheel. So 1,500.5 times 80. Okay. And you get 335,214.92. That's Newton. Okay. Since this is just normal force. Now I can finally solve for frictional force. It's mu n. What's mu? 0.30. So 0.30 n. Finally, F is solving for that 100,564.48. Again, frictional forces in newtons. Then finally, torque equals RF. R, what's R? This is R. So that's just 1,500.5 over 2. Let's move that away. Let's put it here. Newton per millimeter squared. Over 2 times frictional force F. Again, this F is here. It's this value. So final answer, torque is equal to, it's a very long number. So 75448.497.55 Newton meter and Newton millimeter. Let's do this. And torque has a unit of Newton meter or Newton millimeter. So converting that to Newton meter divided by 1,000, 75.45 Newton meter or kilonewton millimeter. Divided by 100,000 to get kilonewton meter. There. And we're done. Oh. So it didn't state here what unit. So you can have that answer. In the exam, I'm going to state what unit you have or you need your final answer to be anyway. All right. So we have that. It's green. There. All right, that's number 3. We'll continue our discussion next meeting. Do you have any questions? Please answer. Do you have any questions?
Ma'am,
Yes.
paano po mag-apply for completion module?
Oh, I'm gonna have you re-answer or retake your quiz, sit work, or homework. I'll have it up by the weekend. Then you have the rest of the term to complete it.
Retake lang po, ma'am.
Yeah.
Bale.
Yeah.
Sige po, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So you need to complete your grade, since for those who have IT, just have to retake within the term so that you don't have to do it next term. Okay. It's easy to change your grade now. So again, I'm going to have it up by the weekend. I'll give you the instructions so that you can change your grade from IP to 3. Remember, for those who have IP, the highest grade you can have for that module is 3. Okay, good. So just wait for my instructions over the weekend. All right? Oh, any other questions? Any? Oh yeah, by the way, midterm assessment. Yeah, you guys have your midterm assessment. Let me explain that. It can be PDF or Word, doesn't matter. It's gonna be shown to me anyway normally. Okay, so I have a minute. So for midterm assessment, this is due on Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Answer the following. Okay. What have you learned so far in the class? So what has stuck in your mind? Don't just give me the syllabus. Okay, what have you really understood for every lesson that I've given? Next, what would you like to change for the class? Do you want me to speak slower? Do you want me to speak louder? Do you want it to be slower, the pacing to be slower or faster? Basically anything you want to improve on. Next, do you want to keep about the class? Do you want to keep the PDF files? Is that fine with you? Is the pacing of the class fine? And just basically just write anything you like or would like to keep about this class. Number 4, what do you think about your performance in this class so far? Are you satisfied? Do you think you can do better? Explain your circumstances there. Then number 5, any other suggestions you would like? What do you want to do in this class that I haven't done yet? Okay, so that's your midterm assessment due on Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Any other questions? Lana? Okay. So we're sorry for exceeding a minute. You may now go. Goodbye, class.